He found his ex-wife kneeling in the rain, begging with a cardboard sign. Broken. Bruised. He thought she'd abandoned him 7 years ago. Then he saw the boy hiding behind her, a boy with his own eyes. What she whispered next made the most dangerous man in the city realize he'd been fighting the wrong enemy all along. Alessandro Moretti didn't believe in second chances. In his world, you got one shot to prove yourself, and if you failed, the city swallowed you whole. Tonight, he'd lost $4 million in an arms deal that went sideways, and someone was going to pay for it. The rain hammered against the bulletproof windows of his black SUV as they crawled through the industrial district. His driver, Vince, kept his eyes forward, knowing better than to speak when the boss wore that particular expression, the one that meant someone might not see tomorrow. Alessandro's phone buzzed with another angry text from his accountant. He ignored it, staring instead at the neon signs bleeding their colors into puddles on the cracked pavement. This part of the city belonged to him, every grimy corner of it, yet tonight it felt foreign. Hostile. The traffic light ahead flashed red. Vince brought the SUV to a smooth stop, and that's when Alessandro saw her. At first, she was just another shadow in the rain, one of the countless desperate souls that haunted these streets after dark. She knelt on the corner near the crosswalk, her thin frame hunched over a piece of cardboard that the rain had nearly destroyed. Her clothes hung loose, torn at the sleeves. Her hair, dark and tangled, clung to her face. Alessandro had seen 1,000 people like her. He'd stepped over bodies in alleys, driven past the homeless, without a second glance. In his business, compassion was a currency you couldn't afford. But something made him look twice. Maybe it was the way she held herself. Even on her knees, there was something in her posture that didn't quite fit. Or maybe it was the small boy crouched behind her, no more than 6 or 7 years old, clutching the back of her soaked coat with tiny fists. The light was still red. Traffic hummed around them. The woman shifted, trying to shield the boy from the rain with her own body. As she moved, the streetlight caught her face for just a moment. Alessandro's blood turned to ice. "Stop the car," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Vince's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Boss. I said stop the goddamn car." The SUV jerked to a halt. Horns blared behind them. Alessandro didn't hear them. He was already reaching for the door handle, his heart pounding in a way it hadn't since he was a young man staring down his first gun barrel. It couldn't be her. It was impossible. Marina had disappeared 7 years ago. He'd searched for her, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars turning over every stone in 3 states. His best men had found nothing. No body, no trail, no evidence she'd ever existed beyond the divorce papers his lawyer received by mail. And now here she was, kneeling in the rain like a ghost made flesh. Alessandro stepped out of the SUV. The rain hit him immediately, soaking through his $2,000 suit in seconds. He didn't care. He moved toward her slowly, afraid that if he blinked, she'd vanish again. She didn't notice him at first. Her head was down, her cardboard sign clutched in trembling hands. He couldn't read what it said. The ink had run into meaningless streaks. "Marina," he said. She went rigid. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she lifted her head. Her face was thinner than he remembered, carved down to sharp angles by hunger and hardship. A purple bruise spread across her left cheekbone. Her lower lip was split, scabbed over. But her eyes, those dark eyes that used to look at him with something between love and fear, those were the same. Recognition flashed across her face, followed immediately by terror. "No," she whispered. She scrambled backward, pulling the boy with her. No, please. Marina, wait. Stay away from us." Her voice cracked. She positioned herself between Alessandro and the child, her arms spread wide despite how much she was shaking. "Please, just let us go. We'll disappear. You'll never see us again. I swear." "I'm not going to hurt you." Alessandro raised his hands, suddenly aware of how he must look to her. A monster emerging from the rain, the same monster she'd once fled from. "Let me help you. Please." Behind him, Vince had gotten out of the SUV, his hand resting on the gun under his jacket. 2 more cars had stopped, Alessandro's security detail closing ranks. Pedestrians were starting to stare. Marina's eyes darted from face to face, tracking the exits, calculating odds she couldn't possibly beat. The boy whimpered and pressed his face against her back. "Marina," Alessandro said quietly, taking one careful step forward. "I know you're scared, but you're hurt, and that kid needs to get out of the rain. Just let me take you somewhere warm. Somewhere safe.
Nostrines.
If you want to leave after that, I'll drive you anywhere you want to go." She stared at him, water streaming down her face. He couldn't tell if she was crying or if it was just the rain. "You promise?" Her voice was so small, so broken. Nothing like the woman who used to argue with him about his business, who'd thrown a vase at his head when she found out about his first major weapons deal. "I promise." It was a lie. The moment he'd seen her, the moment he'd recognized the shape of her face in the dark, he'd known he couldn't let her disappear again. But right now, she needed to believe it. Marina looked down at the boy, really looked at him, as if weighing his life against her fear. Then she nodded just once. "Okay," she whispered. "But just for tonight. Just until the rain stops." Alessandro gestured to Vince, who immediately moved to open the SUV's back door. Marina stood slowly, keeping the boy behind her. As she passed under the streetlight, Alessandro got his first clear look at the child. The boy couldn't have been more than 6. He had dark, messy hair and olive skin. His clothes were too big, probably donated, and his shoes had holes in them. But it was his face that made Alessandro's chest tighten, the stubborn set of his jaw, the way his eyebrows drew together when he was scared. The boy looked up at Alessandro with wide, terrified eyes. And Alessandro saw his own face staring back at him. The same dark eyes. The same sharp nose. The same expression he'd seen in his mirror 1,000 times. The rain kept falling. Car horns kept blaring. But Alessandro couldn't move, couldn't breathe. 7 years ago, Marina had disappeared without warning. 7 years ago, she'd left him a note that said only, "I can't do this anymore. Don't look for me." He thought she'd run because of what he was, a criminal, a killer, a man who made his fortune in blood and bullets. He'd thought she couldn't stomach being married to a monster. He'd never considered she might have been running for something instead of from something.
"Boss."
Vince's voice cut through the rain. "We need to move. We're attracting attention." Alessandro forced himself to focus. Marina had already climbed into the SUV, pulling the boy in after her. They huddled together in the far corner of the back seat, as far from the door as they could get. Alessandro slid in beside them, careful to keep his distance. Vince shut the door and returned to the driver's seat. The convoy pulled away from the curb, leaving the rain-soaked corner behind. Inside the SUV, silence hung heavy. Marina kept her arms wrapped around the boy, her eyes fixed on the window. The boy stared at Alessandro with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "What's your name?" Alessandro asked softly. The boy looked up at Marina, seeking permission. She hesitated, then nodded. "Leo," the boy whispered.
"Le."
The name hit Alessandro like a fist to the gut. It had been his grandfather's name, the man who'd first brought the Moretti family to America, who'd built an empire from nothing. Marina had named their son after Alessandro's grandfather. Their son. Alessandro's hands curled into fists on his knees. Questions burned in his throat, but he swallowed them down. Not here.
Not now.
Not with the boy watching. "Where are we going?" Marina asked, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Alessandro met Vince's eyes in the rearview mirror and made a decision that would change everything. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere no one will find you." What he didn't say, what Marina couldn't know yet, was that the moment he'd recognized her on that street corner, he'd declared war. Not on rival families or business competitors. On whoever had put those bruises on her face. On whoever had driven her to her knees in the rain. On whoever had spent 7 years hunting the mother of his child. And Alessandro Moretti always won his wars. No matter what it cost him. The diner was called Sal's, a rundown place with cracked vinyl booths and flickering neon signs that buzzed like dying insects. Alessandro had owned it for years, a front for money laundering that actually served halfway decent coffee. More importantly, it was empty at this hour except for one cook in the back who knew to keep his mouth shut. Vince pulled the SUV into the alley behind the diner. Alessandro got out first, scanning the shadows out of habit. When he opened the back door, Marina flinched so hard she nearly fell backward into the seat. "It's okay," he said, hating how those words sounded, hollow, meaningless. Nothing about this was okay.
Come on.
You need to eat something. Marina climbed out slowly, pulling Leo with her. The boy's legs were shaking. Alessandro realized the kid probably hadn't eaten a real meal in days, maybe weeks. Inside, the diner smelled like grease and burnt coffee. The fluorescent lights were too bright after the darkness outside. Marina's eyes darted around, cataloging exits, looking for threats. Alessandro recognized the behavior. He'd seen it in soldiers, in people who'd survived things that broke others. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a booth near the back. "I'll get you food." "We're not hungry," Marina said automatically, but her stomach growled loud enough to betray her. "Sit down, Marina." Something in his tone made her obey. She slid into the booth with Leo pressed against her side. The boy's eyes were huge, taking in everything: the chrome napkin dispensers, the laminated menus, the pie case with 3 sad-looking slices under glass. Alessandro went to the kitchen window and spoke quietly to the cook. Then he returned with 2 glasses of water and a cup of hot chocolate. He set the chocolate in front of Leo. "It's not poisoned," Alessandro said when the boy didn't reach for it. "Leo, don't." Marina started, but Leo was already grabbing the cup with both hands, bringing it to his lips like it was the most precious thing in the world. Marina's face crumpled for just a second before she forced it smooth again. Alessandro looked away, giving her that small dignity. The food came fast: burgers, fries, soup. Marina tried to eat slowly, tried to maintain some pretense of control, but within minutes, she was devouring everything in front of her. Leo ate like a starving animal, cramming fries into his mouth with both hands. Alessandro watched them and felt something dark and violent unfurling in his chest. He'd killed men for less than what someone had done to his family. And make no mistake, despite the divorce papers, despite 7 years of silence, they were still his family. When the worst of their hunger was satisfied, Alessandro leaned forward. "We need to talk. Alone." Marina's hand immediately went to Leo's shoulder.
No.
"Whatever you have to say." "There's a bathroom in the back."
No windows.
"One door." "I'll stand right outside it." Alessandro kept his voice level, reasonable. "The kid doesn't need to hear this conversation." Marina's jaw tightened, but she must have seen the logic in it. She looked down at Leo. "Baby, stay here and finish your food. I'll be right back. You can see me the whole time, okay?" Leo nodded, though his eyes filled with tears. The bathroom was exactly as Alessandro had described: small, dingy, with a mirror that had a crack running through it like lightning. Marina stood with her back against the far wall, as far from him as the tiny space allowed. Alessandro closed the door, but didn't lock it. He wanted her to know she could run if she needed to. "Why are you here?" he asked quietly. "In my city. On my streets." "I didn't know it was your city anymore." "I thought." She stopped, swallowed hard. "I heard you were dead."
Who told you that?
"It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." Marina shook her head violently. "I can't. If I tell you, if you go after them, they'll kill Leo. They promised me. They said if I ever." "Who, Marina?" Alessandro took a step closer. She pressed harder against the wall, and he forced himself to stop. "Who threatened you?" "I can't." Tears were streaming down her face now, silent and terrible.
Please don't make me say it.
"Just let us go. Forget you saw us." "That boy out there." Alessandro's voice cracked. He steadied it. "He's mine, isn't he?" The question hung between them like a blade. Marina closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were full of a pain so deep it made Alessandro's chest ache. It doesn't matter whose he is. You can't claim him. The moment you do, he's dead. We're both dead. Tell me who did this to you.
No. Marina.
You want to know who hurt me? She laughed, a broken sound. You did, Alessandro. The moment I married you, I was marked. Everyone who wanted to hurt you saw me as a target. Every enemy you made became mine. And when I got pregnant, her voice broke. I had to choose. Your world or his life. So I chose. Alessandro felt like he'd been gutted. You should have told me. So you could what? Lock us in a fortress? Raise him to be like you. Marina wiped her eyes roughly. I wanted him to be normal. To be safe. To never know what his father was. And how did that work out? Alessandro gestured to her bruised face, her torn clothes. You're begging on street corners, Marina. That's not safe. That's not normal. That's dying slowly. At least we were dying free. The words hit like bullets. Before Alessandro could respond, Leo's voice called out, small and frightened. Mama? Marina immediately pushed past Alessandro, rushing back to the booth. Leo had knocked over his water glass. It spread across the table like blood. It's okay, baby. I'm here. Marina gathered him into her arms. Alessandro stood in the bathroom doorway, watching them. Mother and son. His family. His responsibility. His failure. Outside, he heard the rumble of an engine. Too close, moving too slow. Through the window, he saw a black sedan creeping past the diner. The same sedan that had been parked across from the corner where he'd found Marina. Someone had followed them. Alessandro moved fast. He was across the diner in 3 strides, his hand already reaching for the gun holstered at his back. Vince, he barked. His driver appeared from the kitchen, weapon drawn. He'd seen the sedan too. Back exit. Now Alessandro grabbed Marina's arm, hauling her up from the booth. Leo yelped in surprise. What's happening? Marina's voice pitched high with panic. Someone followed us. Alessandro scooped Leo up with his free arm. The boy was light, too light. We're leaving. Don't argue. They moved through the kitchen in a rush. The cook had already disappeared, knowing better than to be a witness to whatever was about to happen. Vince hit the back door first, checking the alley with military precision.
Clear, he called.
They piled into the SUV. Alessandro kept Leo in his lap this time, one arm wrapped protectively around the small body. Marina pressed against his other side, her breathing rapid and shallow. Where are we going? Vince asked as the engine roared to life. Alessandro made a split-second decision. He couldn't take them to any of his usual safe houses. If someone had found Marina this fast, they had inside information. Someone in his organization was leaking. The warehouse. The old one on Pier 19. Nobody knows about it except you and me. Vince nodded and hit the gas. They drove in silence through the rain-soaked streets. Alessandro kept watching the mirrors, tracking every car, every shadow. Leo's small body trembled against his chest. The boy smelled like rain and fear, and that indefinable scent all children had, something innocent and fragile. Alessandro had forgotten that innocence existed. Who were they?
Marina whispered.
I don't know yet. Alessandro's jaw tightened. But I'm going to find out. The warehouse on Pier 19 had been one of his grandfather's properties, bought back when the docks still meant something. It was off the books, paid for in cash that had long since been buried under layers of legitimate businesses. Alessandro kept it as a last resort, a bolt hole nobody knew about. Until tonight, he never needed it. Vince pulled the SUV inside. The space was cavernous and dark, filled with old shipping containers and forgotten machinery. Alessandro had installed a small living area in the back corner years ago, just a cot, a bathroom, some basic supplies. He'd thought of it as a prison cell if he ever needed to interrogate someone away from prying eyes. Now it would be a sanctuary. Stay in the car, Alessandro told Marina. He handed Leo back to her and stepped out with Vince. Boss, what's the play here? Vince kept his voice low. This is bigger than a random tale. Someone knew exactly where to find her. I know. Alessandro's mind raced through possibilities. each one worse than the last. I need you to go back to headquarters. Business as usual. Don't tell anyone where I am or what happened tonight. You sure that's smart? Going dark right after the arms deal went south. The arms deal was a setup Alessandro had known at the moment he'd seen Marina. The timing was too perfect, too clean. Someone wanted me distracted, scrambling. They wanted me vulnerable. And the woman? Alessandro's hand curled into a fist. She's not part of this. She's collateral they've been holding over my head for 7 years, and I didn't even know it. Vince processed this, his weathered face grim. You need backup.
No.
Too many people, too many chances for a leak. Just you and me on this until I figure out who I can trust. Alessandro gripped his driver's shoulder.
Go.
Make sure everyone thinks I'm chasing down the money from the deal. Give me 48 hours. Vince hesitated, then nodded. Watch your back, boss. Always do. After Vince left, Alessandro returned to the SUV. Marina hadn't moved. Leo had fallen asleep in her arms, his small face pressed against her shoulder. Is he gone? Marina asked.
Yeah. Come on.
There's a room in the back. He led them through the maze of containers to the small living space. It wasn't much, cement walls, a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, that cot he'd mentioned. There was a mini fridge that probably didn't work and a chemical toilet behind a curtain. Marina looked around with hollow eyes. This is where you bring people to kill them, isn't it? Sometimes Alessandro saw no point in lying. But not tonight. He found some blankets in a plastic bin, musty but clean enough. Marina laid Leo on the cot and covered him carefully. The boy didn't wake. He was beyond exhausted, his small body finally surrendering to sleep. Alessandro pulled up an old metal chair and sat down. Marina remained standing, her arms wrapped around herself. Take off your jacket, Alessandro said. What? Your jacket. Let me see your injuries.
Ai fine.
Marina, his voice carried the weight of command he used on his soldiers. I've seen wounded men try to play tough. You're swaying on your feet. Take off the jacket. She did, reluctantly. Underneath, her shirt was torn at the shoulder, revealing more bruises, dark purple spreading across her collarbone, finger marks around her upper arms.
Defensive wounds, Alessandro recognized.
Someone had grabbed her, held her down. His vision went red at the edges. Who did this? It doesn't matter anymore. Marina's voice was dead, defeated. They'll find us eventually. They always do. Alessandro stood and crossed to the small sink in the corner. He found a first aid kit in another bin, old but still sealed. He wet a clean cloth and returned to Marina. Sit, he said softly. She sat. Alessandro knelt in front of her and began cleaning the cuts on her face with gentle precision. His hands that had strangled men, broken bones, pulled triggers, were impossibly gentle now. Tell me his name, Alessandro said quietly. The person who did this. Tell me, and I'll make it stop. Marina's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth, and Alessandro saw her wrestling with 7 years of silence, 7 years of terror. Finally, she whispered 2 words that changed everything. Rocco Venturi. Alessandro's hand froze. The cloth dripped pink water onto the concrete floor. Rocco Venturi. His former second-in-command. His most trusted lieutenant. The man who'd stood beside him at his wedding. The man he'd promoted to captain 3 years ago. He's still alive. Marina's voice cracked. Tell me he's not. He runs the East Side operations. Alessandro's voice came from somewhere far away. He's one of my top earls. And suddenly, everything made terrible sense. The failed arms deal. The missing money. The carefully orchestrated chaos. Rocco hadn't been protecting the empire. He'd been trying to take it. And Marina had been his insurance policy all along. Alessandro didn't sleep. He sat in that metal chair all night, his gun in his lap, watching Marina and Leo breathe. Every creak of the warehouse made his hand twitch toward the weapon. Every distant siren sent his heart racing. Rocco Venturi. The name circled in his head like a vulture. They'd grown up together in the same neighborhood, Two kids who'd learned early that the world didn't give you anything. You had to take it. Rocco had been there when Alessandro made his first deal, his first kill, his first real money. He'd been best man at Alessandro's wedding. And he'd been the one to comfort Alessandro when Marina disappeared, pouring drinks and swearing they'd find her, all while knowing exactly where she was. The betrayal burned worse than any bullet Alessandro had ever taken. Dawn crept through the high windows of the warehouse, pale and gray. Leo stirred first, his small body jerking awake with a gasp. His eyes flew open, wide and terrified, scanning the unfamiliar room. "Mama," he cried out.
Marina bolted upright, instantly awake.
"I'm here, baby. I'm right here." Leo scrambled into her arms, burying his face against her neck. She rocked him, murmuring soft words Alessandro couldn't quite hear. He stayed still, not wanting to intrude on their moment. But Leo noticed him anyway. The boy's dark eyes, Alessandro's eyes, fixed on him over Marina's shoulder. "Is he the bad man?" Leo whispered. The question hit Alessandro like a sledgehammer. "No," Marina said quickly.
No,
He's not going to hurt us. But you're scared of him. I can tell. Kids saw too much. Alessandro had forgotten that. He slowly stood, keeping his movements careful and non-threatening. He walked to the mini-fridge and was surprised to find it actually worked. Inside were bottles of water and some protein bars that were probably expired but sealed. He brought them to the cot. "Hungry?" Leo looked at Marina for permission. She nodded, and the boy grabbed a protein bar with both hands, tearing into it like a wild thing. Alessandro knelt down, bringing himself to Leo's eye level. "What's your full name, kid?" Leo chewed, considering whether to answer. "Leo James." "James was my father's name," Alessandro said quietly. Marina's face flushed. Don't do this." "Do what?" "Acknowledge my son." Alessandro kept his eyes on Leo. "How old are you, Leo?" 6¾ The boy held up fingers as if to prove it. "My birthday is June 15. Alessandro did the math. 9 months before June would be September. He and Marina had still been together then, those last desperate weeks of their marriage when everything was falling apart, but they'd still reached for each other in the dark. "Leo," Alessandro said carefully, "do you know who I am?" "You're the man from the rain." Leo's voice was small. "Are you going to make the bad men go away?" "What bad men?" Leo looked up at Marina again. She closed her eyes, a single tear tracking down her cheek. "The ones who hurt Mama," Leo said. "They come at night sometimes. They have loud voices and they smell like cigarettes. Mama always hides me in the closet or under the bed, but I can still hear them. They say bad words, and Mama cries." Alessandro's hands curled into fists, so tight his knuckles cracked. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. Losing control in front of the boy would help no one. "How many times?" he asked Marina. "How many times has Rocco found you?" "Twice in 7 years." Her voice was hollow. "The first time was in Ohio. I'd been working at a diner, saving money. One night, 3 of his men showed up. They told me Alessandro was dead, killed in prison. They said I was a widow and I owed Rocco, for my protection. When I refused, she touched the old scar on her eyebrow. We ran that night, took nothing but Leo and the clothes on our backs. And the second time? Last week." Here, Marina's hands shook as she held Leo tighter. "I thought we were safe. We'd been moving every few months, never staying anywhere long enough to be found. But someone recognized me at the shelter. By the time I realized, it was too late. His men came to the motel where we were staying. They didn't just threaten this time. Her voice broke. "Leo, baby, go look at the big containers. See if you can count them all." Leo scrambled off the cot, grateful for the excuse to escape the adult conversation. He ran to the nearest shipping container and began counting loudly, touching each one. When he was out of earshot, Marina continued in a whisper. "They beat me. Took our money, our food, everything. Said Rocco wanted me to suffer, wanted me to understand what happens to people who run from the Moretti family. Then they said if I was still in the city by the end of the week, they'd take Leo instead. They'd raise him to be just like you, just like them. So, you ended up on the street. Better to beg than to let them have my son. Marina's eyes flashed with the first real fire Alessandro had seen in her. I'd die first. I'd let them kill me before I let them touch him. They're not going to touch him, Alessandro stood. And they're not going to kill you. I'm going to.
What?
Go to war with your own second-in-command? Rocco's been building his power for years, Alessandro. Half your men are probably loyal to him now. If you move against him, you'll tear your empire apart. Then I'll tear it apart. The words came out simple, final. Alessandro meant every syllable. Marina stared at him. You can't. Everything you've built means nothing if my family isn't safe. We're not your family anymore. The divorce was signed under duress. Alessandro cut her off. You were threatened, terrorized, forced to run. That doesn't count. In every way that matters, you're still my wife. And he. Alessandro looked at Leo, who is now climbing on a container, still counting loudly. He's my son. My blood. No one threatens my blood and Lev's. Marina shook her head, tears flowing freely now. You don't understand. Rocco's not just after power.
He's obsessed.
He said he told me once that he loved me. That if I'd just chosen him instead of you, none of this would have happened. He's not rational about this, Alessandro. He won't stop until one of you is dead. Alessandro processed this new information, slotting it into place with everything else he knew about Rocco. The man's jealousy. His ambition. The way he'd always looked at Marina just a little too long. Then I'll make sure it's him, Alessandro said quietly. A phone buzzed. Alessandro pulled out his cell. A message from Vince. 3 words. We have problems. I need to make some calls, Alessandro told Marina. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but me. He handed her his backup piece, a small 9mm. You remember how to use this? Marina took the gun with steady hands. Yes. Good. Alessandro moved toward the door, then paused.
Marina?
Why Leo? Why my grandfather's name? She smiled sadly. Because despite everything, despite all the blood and the violence and the fear, Leonardo Moretti was a good man who loved his family. I wanted our son to have that legacy. Not the empire. Just the love. Alessandro nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. As he walked away, he heard Leo call out. 43. I counted 43 containers. That's very good, baby, Marina replied. Alessandro stepped outside and pulled out his phone. Whatever Vince had discovered, whatever problems were waiting, they could all be dealt with. Because now Alessandro Moretti had something more dangerous than an empire to protect. He had something to lose. Alessandro stepped into the cold morning air and dialed Vince. His driver answered on the first ring. Talk to me. Boss, the streets are buzzing. Vince's voice was tight. Word got out you pulled someone off a corner last night. People are asking questions. What kind of questions? The dangerous kind. Nobody knows it was your ex-wife yet, but Rocco's been making moves since dawn. He's got soldiers sweeping the industrial district, checking hospitals, shelters. He's telling people you're distracted, that the failed arms deal has you losing your edge. Alessandro's grip tightened on the phone. He's moving faster than I expected. There's more. The accountants are screaming about the missing $4 million. Tony Barone called an emergency meeting of the captains for tonight. They want answers about the money, about your judgment. Rocco's been in their ears, boss. He's pushing hard. Tony Barone, the family consigliere, the man who'd advised Alessandro's father before him. Tony was old school, traditional. He believed in rules and structure. If he was calling a meeting, it meant the foundation was cracking. Where's the meeting? Your penthouse. 8 o'clock. All the top brass. Alessandro checked his watch. He had 10 hours to figure out his play. 10 hours to decide whether to save his empire or burn it down to protect 2 people hiding in a warehouse. What about my private accounts? Alessandro asked. The offshore ones only you and I know about. Untouched. You've got about 8 million liquid if you need to move fast. 8 million could buy a lot of things. New identities. A plane to somewhere Rocco's reach didn't extend. A fresh start for Marina and Leo. But it couldn't buy justice. It couldn't buy revenge. I need you to do something for me, Alessandro said. Quietly. Don't tell anyone, not even people you trust. Name it. I need eyes on Rocco. Where he goes, who he talks to, everything. And I need to know which of our captains are still loyal to me versus him. Boss, that's half the organization. Could take days. You've got until tonight. Vince whistled low. You're planning something. I'm planning to survive, Alessandro paused. And, Vince, the woman from last night, nobody can know about her. Nobody. If anyone asks, tell them I spent the night with a prostitute or something. Make it sound cheap and meaningless.
Understood. Vince hesitated.
For what it's worth, boss. Whatever you're protecting must be important. It is. More important than anything. Alessandro ended the call and immediately dialed another number. This one rang 6 times before a gravelly voice answered. Moretti. It's 6 a.m. I need information, Frankie. Frankie, the rat, Delacroix, was an information broker, a man who lived in the shadows between the crime families and made his living selling secrets. He was neutral territory, trusted by no one and used by everyone. Information costs money, especially at this hour. I'll pay double your rate. I need everything you have on Rocco Venturi. His movements, his contacts, his accounts. Everything from the past 7 years. A pause. That's a lot of years, Moretti. That's a lot of data. Why the sudden interest in your own second? That's my business. And my business is knowing everyone's business, Frankie's voice sharpened. Word is you lost $4 million last night. Word is your crew is questioning whether you still got the touch. You going after Rocco at a time like this? That's either brilliant or suicidal. You in or not? I'm in, but it'll take time. Rocco's careful, doesn't leave much of a trail. I need it by tonight. 6 o'clock. Frankie laughed. You're insane. That's impossible. Then charge me triple. I don't care about the money. The laughter stopped. You're serious. Dead serious. All right. 6 o'clock. But Moretti, you better win whatever war you're starting. Because if Rocco comes out on top and finds out I helped you, I'm dead. Which means you owe me protection. Done. Alessandro hung up and stared at the warehouse. Inside those walls were the only 2 people in the world who mattered to him. Outside was an empire built on blood and betrayal, an empire that was crumbling while he stood watch over a rusted door. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Yeah. Alessandro Moretti, the voice was smooth, confident. Rocco. We need to talk. Every muscle in Alessandro's body went rigid.
I'm listening.
I heard you had an interesting night. Picked up a stray in the rain. Very charitable of you. So Rocco knew. Of course he knew. He probably had people watching, waiting to see what Alessandro would do. I help who I want to help, Alessandro said carefully. It's not your concern. See, that's where you're wrong, Rocco's voice hardened. Everything you do is my concern. We're partners, remember? Brothers in arms. And brothers tell each other things. Like when they're making stupid decisions that could hurt the family. What do you want, Rocco? I want you to remember what's important. The organization. The money. The power. Not some ghost from your past that should have stayed buried. You threatening me? I'm advising you. As your friend, Rocco paused. You lost $4 million last night, Alessandro. The captains are nervous. They're wondering if you're losing focus, if maybe it's time for new leadership. I've been defending you, telling them it's just a rough patch. But if you keep making emotional decisions, keep chasing shadows instead of handling business, then what? Then I can't protect you anymore. Then the family does what the family always does. It survives. With or without you. The line went dead. Alessandro stood there, phone in hand, rage burning through his veins like acid. Rocco wasn't even hiding it anymore. He was making his play in broad daylight, confident that Alessandro was too distracted, too compromised to fight back. The warehouse door creaked open. Marina stood there, Leo behind her, both of them pale and frightened. "I heard shouting," Marina said. "Are you okay?" Alessandro realized he'd been cursing out loud, his voice echoing off the pier. He forced himself to calm down. "We need to move again," he said. "This location isn't safe anymore. Where can we possibly go that Rocco won't find us?" Alessandro thought about it. Every safe house, every property, every business, Rocco knew them all. He'd helped acquire half of them. There was nowhere in the city that was truly safe. Except one place. "I'm taking you to church," Alessandro said.
Marina blinked.
"What?" "St. Augustine's. The old cathedral on Mercy Street. The nuns there run a shelter in the basement. They've helped me before, kept secrets that could have gotten them killed. They don't ask questions, and they don't break trust. You trust nuns more than your own men."
Alessandro smiled grimly. "Right now?"
"I trust nuns more than anyone." He pulled out his phone and sent Vince a coded message. "Need the package delivered to St. Augustine's. Discretion critical." Within minutes, Vince responded. "On it." 30 minutes. "Pack up whatever you need," Alessandro told Marina. "We're leaving in 20. As she gathered their few belongings, Leo tugged on Alessandro's jacket. "Are the bad men coming?" Alessandro knelt down. "Maybe. But I'm not going to let them hurt you. I promise." "Promises don't always work," Leo said with the wisdom of a child who'd learned that lesson too early. "Mama promised we'd be safe before. But we weren't." "I know. But I'm different," Alessandro met the boy's eyes. "I'm your father. And fathers protect their families. No matter what." Leo's eyes widened. "You're my papa?" Behind them, Marina made a sound like a sob. Alessandro hadn't meant to tell the boy, not yet, not like this. But it was too late now. "Yeah," Alessandro said softly. "I'm your papa. And I'm going to make the bad men go away. Forever." Leo threw his small arms around Alessandro's neck, holding on tight. And Alessandro Moretti, who'd killed dozens of men without flinching, felt his heart break and rebuild itself all at once. The penthouse overlooked the city like a throne room, all glass and marble and cold sophistication. Alessandro stood at the window, watching the sun set over the skyline he'd fought to control. Behind him, the conference table was surrounded by the men who ran his empire, 7 captains, each one commanding a different piece of the Moretti machine. And Rocco, sitting at Alessandro's right hand where he'd sat for 5 years. "Glad you could join us, boss," Tony Barone said dryly. The Consigliere was 72, gray and weathered like driftwood. "We were starting to think you'd forgotten about us." Alessandro turned from the window. "I've been handling a situation that cost us $4 million, said Marcus Chen, captain of the gambling operations. "A situation that has our suppliers nervous and our buyers looking elsewhere." "The arms deal was compromised," Alessandro said calmly, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Someone leaked the location and the timing to the feds. We lost the money, but nobody got arrested. I call that a win." "You call losing $4 million a win?" Vincent Calabrese, who ran the dock operations, slammed his hand on the table. "We've got shipments delayed, payments overdue. Half the waterfront crews are threatening to walk because they haven't been paid." "They'll get paid," Alessandro said. "I've got reserves." "Which you're apparently spending on personal matters," Rocco interjected smoothly. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of casual confidence. "Word is you've been distracted. Chasing something or someone that has nothing to do with family business." Alessandro met Rocco's eyes across the table. The challenge was clear, out in the open now. Everyone at the table felt it, the shift in power dynamics. "My personal life is my own concern," Alessandro said carefully. "Not when it affects the organization." Tony pulled out a folder, sliding papers across the table. "These are the numbers, Alessandro. We're bleeding money. The failed arms deal was just the latest. Over the past 3 months, we've lost contracts to the Borealis. The Qin family is moving in on our territory in Chinatown, and the Russians are sniffing around our construction sites." Alessandro scanned the reports. They were worse than he'd expected. While he'd been focused on maintaining day-to-day operations, someone had been systematically undermining his foundations. Someone at this table. 3 months, Alessandro said quietly. These problems started 3 months ago. Around the time you started acting strange, Rocco said. Disappearing for hours. Making decisions without consulting the captains. Taking calls in private. That was a lie. 3 months ago, Alessandro had been running the organization exactly as he always had. But Rocco was rewriting history, planting seeds of doubt. I want to know who leaked the arms deal location, Alessandro said, changing tactics. That information was need to know. Only people at this table had it. The captains exchanged glances. Vincent spoke up. You saying one of us is a rat? I'm saying someone talked. Intentionally or not. Or maybe your security is slipping, Rocco suggested. Maybe you're not as sharp as you used to be. It happens. Leadership is exhausting. Sometimes a man needs to step back, let fresh blood take over before things get worse. There it was. The coup, spoken almost politely. You volunteering? Alessandro kept his voice neutral. If that's what the family needs, Rocco spread his hands. I'm not ambitious, boss. You know that. But I am loyal. Loyal to the organization, to tradition, to the rules we've all sworn to uphold. Tony cleared his throat. The rules state that if a boss becomes compromised mentally, physically, or emotionally, the captains can vote for new leadership. It's happened twice in our history. I'm not compromised, Alessandro said. Then prove it, Marcus leaned forward. Tell us what you've been doing the past 24 hours. Where you've been. Who you've been with. Alessandro thought of Marina and Leo, hidden in the basement of St. Augustine's with Sister Margaret standing guard. The nuns had taken them in without question, given them clean clothes and hot food and a safe room with locks on the inside. If he told these men about Marina, about Leo, he'd be signing their death warrants. Rocco would move the instant he had confirmation. And if Rocco had turned half the captains already, Alessandro couldn't guarantee their safety. I was following a lead on the missing money. Alessandro lied smoothly. Meeting with contacts who don't appreciate having their names thrown around conference tables. Bullshit, Rocco said flatly. You were with a woman. The same woman you picked up off the street in the industrial district. My sources saw you. Vincent's eyebrows shot up. You picked up a hooker during a crisis? She wasn't a hooker, Alessandro said, then cursed himself for taking the bait. Then who is she? Rocco pressed. An old girlfriend? A new lover? Someone important enough that you abandoned your responsibilities to play hero? Alessandro's hands curled into fists under the table. Rocco was pushing, testing, trying to force him into a corner. If Alessandro admitted who Marina was, Rocco won. If he continued lying, he looked weak and compromised. Her identity is none of your business, Alessandro said finally. Everything is our business, Tony said quietly. That's how this works, Alessandro. You made decisions that affected us all. We deserve answers. And you'll get them. When I'm ready. That's not good enough, Marcus stood. I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of Alessandro Moretti stepping down as head of the family until such time as he can prove his fitness to lead. Wait, the voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Johnny Rossi stood there, Alessandro's most trusted lieutenant, the one man Alessandro had deliberately kept away from this meeting. He was supposed to be handling operations in the South District. What are you doing here? Rocco demanded. I came to deliver something. Johnny walked to the table and placed a thick envelope in front of Alessandro. The information you requested, boss. About the leaked arms deal. Alessandro opened the envelope. Inside were bank records, phone logs, and surveillance photos. All of them pointing to a single source of the leak. Not one of the captains. Someone much closer. These are doctored, Rocco said immediately, his face paling as he saw where Alessandro was looking. Johnny's trying to frame me, turn you against your own people. These are from Frankie Delacroix, Alessandro said calmly. He's been tracking every move you've made for the past 7 years. Every secret account. Every under-the-table deal. Every contract you made with our enemies. He spread the photos across the table. Rocco meeting with Borrell family members. Rocco accepting cash from Russian mob enforcers. Rocco at the docks where the arms deal went down, 2 hours before the feds arrived.
You leaked it, Alessandro said.
You've been leaking everything. Setting me up to fail, so you could take over. The room erupted. Captains shouting, chairs scraping. Vincent grabbed Rocco by the collar. You son of a bitch. My men died in the Fed raid. This is a setup. Rocco shoved Vincent back. Alessandro's desperate, making up evidence because he knows he's losing control. Then explain the money, Johnny said. He pulled out another document. Offshore account in the Caymans. Opened 7 years ago. Small deposits every month, always under the reporting threshold. Total current balance, $3.2 million. Rocco's face went sheet white. $3.2 million, Alessandro repeated. About the amount someone would accumulate by skimming from operations over 7 years. Small amounts nobody would notice. Except Frankie notices everything. Tony studied the documents, his old eyes sharp. If this is true, Rocco, you've broken the most sacred rule. You stole from the family. I protected the family. Rocco exploded. Alessandro was weak, distracted by that woman. She made him soft, made him question the business. I did what had to be done. The confession hung in the air like smoke.
Alessandro stood slowly.
What woman, Rocco? I never mentioned a specific woman. Rocco realized his mistake. His hand moved toward his jacket, toward the gun holstered there. 3 weapons were drawn before he could reach it. Johnny, Vincent, and Marcus, all aiming at Rocco's head. Don't, Alessandro said quietly. Not here. Not in front of everyone. You're going to kill me anyway, Rocco snarled. Might as well make it quick. I'm not going to kill you. Alessandro walked around the table until he stood face to face with his former friend. Not yet. First, you're going to tell me exactly where you've been holding tabs on Marina. Who else knows about her? And where you've been getting your information. Rocco laughed, a broken sound. You think I'll just tell you? Yes, Alessandro said. Because if you don't, I'll let Vincent's men have you. And they're still angry about their friends who died in that Fed raid. The raid you caused. Vincent smiled, showing teeth. Real angry, boss. Rocco looked around the table at faces that had once been friendly, now cold and hostile. His empire had collapsed in minutes. Fine, he spat. I'll tell you everything. But you'll regret it, Alessandro. That woman? That kid? They're your weakness. And weakness gets people killed in our world. I was doing you a favor. Alessandro grabbed Rocco by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Her name, he growled, is Marina. And that kid is my son. And you're going to tell me everything you did to them before I decide how you die. Sister Margaret was 73 years old and had seen enough of the world's cruelty to surprise her anymore. When Alessandro Moretti had brought a battered woman and a frightened child to the church basement at dawn, she'd asked only one question. How long? A few days, Alessandro had said. Maybe less. Now, as twilight painted the stained glass windows in shades of crimson, Sister Margaret sat outside the shelter room reading her Bible while Marina and Leo slept inside. She didn't ask why they needed protection. She didn't ask what sins Alessandro was atoning for. She just kept watch. Inside the room, Marina jerked awake from a nightmare, her heart hammering. Leo stirred beside her on the narrow cot, making small worried sounds in his sleep. She smoothed his hair, checking for the 100th time that the door was locked, that the window was secure, that they were truly safe. They never were. Not really. Safety was an illusion she'd stopped believing in years ago. Her phone, a burner Alessandro had given her that morning, buzzed with a text, "Stay inside." No matter what. Marina's hands trembled. Something was happening. Something bad. She got up quietly and peered through the small window that looked out onto the church courtyard. Everything seemed normal. Empty stone benches. A fountain that hadn't worked in decades. The iron fence that separated holy ground from the street beyond. Then she saw the car. A black sedan. idling at the curb across the street. She couldn't see through the tinted windows, but she didn't need to. She'd learned to recognize danger by the way it lingered, the way it watched. "Sister Margaret," Marina whispered urgently, cracking the door. "There's a car." "I see it," the old nun stood, surprisingly spry. "How many people know you're here?" "Only Alessandro. And his driver." "Then we have a problem." Sister Margaret moved quickly down the hallway.
Come?
"There's another exit through the chapel. Bring the boy." Marina rushed back to wake Leo, but he was already sitting up, sensing the fear in the air the way animals sense earthquakes. "We have to move again?" His voice was so small, so tired. "Yes, baby." Quick and quiet. They followed Sister Margaret through the basement corridors, Leo clutching Marina's hand. Behind them, Marina heard the church's front door open. Heavy footsteps on marble. Male voices, rough and commanding. "Search everywhere. Boss wants them found tonight." Sister Margaret hurried them through the chapel, past rows of empty pews and flickering prayer candles. The stained glass cast colored shadows across Leo's frightened face, red, blue, gold. They reached a side door that led to the courtyard. Sister Margaret peered out, then pulled back quickly. 2 more men. Covering the exits, she turned to Marina with grim determination. "They're professionals. They've planned this." "The trash," Marina said suddenly. "When I take Leo to throw away our garbage, we go through the courtyard. They've been watching our patterns." She'd been so careful for 7 years. And in less than 2 days, she'd gotten comfortable, gotten predictable. It only took one mistake. "There's a third way," Sister Margaret said. "Through the catacombs. They run under the church to the old monastery 2 blocks away. But it's dark and dangerous. Parts have collapsed. Better than staying here." They moved deeper into the church, through a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," and down stone stairs that spiraled into darkness. Sister Margaret produced a flashlight from her habit. "I'll hold them off as long as I can," the nun said. "Go straight, take the second left, then follow the main tunnel until you see daylight. Don't stop for anything." "Sister, they'll hurt you." "Child, I've been standing between wolves and sheep for 50 years.
Go.
Protect your son." Marina wanted to argue, but Leo was shaking and footsteps were thundering through the chapel above. She kissed Sister Margaret's weathered cheek and descended into the catacombs. The darkness swallowed them whole. Marina turned on her phone's flashlight, the weak beam barely penetrating the black. The walls were stone, dripping with moisture. The air smelled of earth and age and death. Niches carved into the walls held the bones of monks dead for centuries. Leo whimpered but didn't cry. He'd learned that crying brought attention, and attention brought pain. They ran through the twisting passages. Marina's lungs burned. Her legs screamed from carrying Leo when he stumbled. Behind them, she heard shouting, the sound echoing and distorting until she couldn't tell if it was close or far. Second left. She found it, nearly missing the turn in the darkness. The tunnel here was narrower, the ceiling lower. Water seeped through cracks overhead, cold drops hitting her face. Then she heard it, a scraping sound ahead. Not behind, ahead. She stopped, pulling Leo close. Her phone light caught movement in the darkness. A figure, blocking the tunnel. "Going somewhere, Marina?" The voice didn't belong to Rocco's men. It was younger, uncertain. Marina raised her light and saw a kid, no more than 19, holding a gun with shaking hands. "Rocco said to bring you back alive," the kid said. "But he didn't say anything about the boy. So maybe you should come quiet and I won't have to." A gunshot exploded in the confined space. The kid dropped, screaming, clutching his leg. Behind Marina, Johnny emerged from the shadows, his weapon still raised. "Boss sent me to watch the church," he said. "Figured Rocco might make a move. Looks like I was right. How did you?" "No time." "More coming." Johnny grabbed Marina's arm and pulled her forward, stepping over the wounded kid. "Stay close. Stay quiet." They ran through the darkness, Johnny leading now. Behind them, the kid's screams echoed through stone corridors, alerting everyone to their position. More shouts. More footsteps. The scrape of weapons against stone. There. A voice behind them. The tunnel splits cut them off. They burst out of the catacombs into the ruins of the old monastery. Moonlight streamed through broken walls and missing roof sections. Johnny's car was parked in what used to be the courtyard, engine running.
In. Now.
Johnny shoved them toward the vehicle. Marina threw Leo into the back seat and Devin after him. Johnny hit the gas before she even closed the door. The car lurched forward, smashing through a rotted wooden gate and onto the street. In the rearview mirror, Marina saw men emerging from the monastery, weapons drawn. One raised a rifle. Johnny swerved hard. The back window exploded. Glass showered over Marina as she covered Leo with her body. The boy was screaming now, finally breaking. Hold on. Johnny took a corner at 60, tires squealing. Calling the boss. Another car appeared ahead, blocking the narrow street. Johnny cursed and reversed, but a second car was already sealing off their retreat. They were boxed in. Get down. Johnny drew his weapon. Don't let them see the kid. Marina pressed Leo to the floor, covering him completely. She heard Johnny's door open, heard him shouting something. Then gunfire, loud, rapid, overwhelming. The car rocked with impacts. Windows shattered. Marina felt something hot graze her shoulder and realized she'd been shot. Leo was screaming for his mama. She was screaming back that it was okay, even as blood ran down her arm and the world exploded with violence. Then suddenly silence. New voices. Different ones. And one that made Marina's heart leap.
Marina.
Where are you? Alessandro's voice, raw with panic. She lifted her head cautiously. Through the shattered windows, she saw bodies on the ground. Rocco's men. All of them down. Alessandro was pulling open the car door, his face white with fear, his hands shaking as he reached for her. I'm okay, she gasped. Leo's okay. Where? You're bleeding, Alessandro's voice broke. He lifted her out of the car with impossible gentleness, then scooped up Leo with his other arm. I've got you. Both of you. I've got you. But as he carried them to his SUV, Marina saw his face in the streetlight. Alessandro Moretti looked like a man who just realized that all the power in the world couldn't protect the people he loved. And that realization was going to get someone killed. The church basement was different this time. Deeper, older, a section even Sister Margaret rarely used. Alessandro had moved them here himself, carrying Marina while Johnny carried Leo. The room was stone and shadow, lit only by candles that flickered in the draft from some hidden crack in the ancient walls. A private doctor, one who owed Alessandro his life and his silence, had already come and gone. Marina's shoulder was bandaged, the bullet had only grazed her, but the pain was sharp and insistent. Leo sat curled in her lap, silent now, his face buried against her chest. He hadn't spoken since the shooting. Alessandro paced the small room like a caged animal. Blood stained his shirt, some his, some Marina's, some belonging to Rocco's men. He'd killed 3 of them himself, emptied his gun into bodies until Johnny physically pulled him away. This is my fault, he said for the 10th time. I should have known Rocco would move this fast. I should have. Stop, Marina's voice was hoarse. Just stop, Alessandro. We're alive. That's what matters. You were shot. And you got there in time, she adjusted Leo in her arms. The boy's breathing had finally steadied, though he still wouldn't look at anything. How did you know?
Johnny.
He's been watching the church since I left. When Rocco's men showed up, he called me. Alessandro stopped pacing, his hands curling into fists. I got Rocco to confess everything at the meeting. His betrayal, his embezzling. But I didn't get him to tell me about his other plans before he... Before he what? Alessandro's jaw tightened. Before Johnny put a bullet in his head. Rocco tried to draw on me during the interrogation. Vincent and Marcus wanted to make it slow, make him suffer for the men they lost. But Johnny ended it quick. Marina absorbed this. So Rocco's dead. Yes. Then it's over. His men will scatter, look for new bosses. We can finally... It's not over. Alessandro knelt in front of her, his dark eyes haunted. Rocco had contingency plans. Soldiers who are loyal to him, who don't care that he's dead. They see you and Leo as loose ends, threats to whatever power structure they're trying to build. And there's something else. He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. Even in the candlelight, Marina could see it was old, worn from handling. I found this in Rocco's office. After. Marina opened it with shaking hands. It was a surveillance photo of her and Leo, taken maybe 3 months ago. They were at a bus stop somewhere, Leo holding her hand. On the back, written in Rocco's handwriting. Found them. Toledo. Moving soon. Wait for the right moment. 3 months, Marina whispered. He's known where we were for 3 months. At least. Maybe longer. Alessandro's voice was raw. He was waiting, Marina. Waiting for the perfect time to use you against me. The failed arms deal, the money troubles, the captains questioning my leadership, he orchestrated all of it. He wanted me desperate, weakened. Then, he was going to offer you back to me in exchange for my empire. Marina felt sick. We weren't running from him. We were running toward his trap. And I walked us right into it by bringing you here. Alessandro stood, resuming his pacing. My city. My territory. Where everyone knows my face. Where Rocco had eyes everywhere. Leo finally lifted his head. His small voice cracked the silence. Are you going to send us away now?
Alessandro froze.
What? Mama always says we have to leave when the bad men find us. That's the rule. We never stay. Leo's eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. So, are you going to make us leave? Send us somewhere alone again? The question hung in the air like smoke from the candles. Marina watched Alessandro's face, watched something break open behind his eyes. He crossed the room and knelt again, this time in front of Leo. No, Alessandro said firmly. I'm not sending you anywhere. You're staying right here with me. But the bad men? I'll handle the bad men. That's what fathers do. They protect their families. But Mama said you can't protect us if we stay near you. She said people like you make everyone around them targets. Leo's voice was matter-of-fact, repeating words he'd clearly heard many times. She said the only way to be safe was to be far away. Alessandro looked at Marina. She couldn't meet his eyes. Is that what you told him? It's what I believed, Marina said quietly. It's what Rocco told me 7 years ago. He said you were too dangerous to be a father, that your enemies would use Leo against you, that the only way to keep him alive was to disappear. And you believed him. Of course I believed him. Marina's voice rose, then cracked. I was 24 years old, Alessandro. Pregnant and terrified. You were in prison awaiting trial for murder. Rocco came to me with photos. Photos of the bodies you'd left behind, of the violence, of everything you were. He said if I stayed, if I raised our child in your world, Leo would either die young or become just like you. He gave me a choice, vanish and keep Leo innocent, or stay and watch him become a monster. So you chose to run. I chose to save him. Tears streamed down Marina's face. I chose to give him a chance at a normal life. School, friends, birthday parties. Things you never had. Things I never had after I married you. And how did that work out? Alessandro's voice was bitter. 7 years on the run. Living in shelters and motels. Begging on street corners. That's the normal life you wanted for him? It was better than this. Marina gestured at the stone walls, the shadows, the evidence of violence all around them. Better than blood and guns and... Mama, stop. Leo's small hand touched her face. Please don't fight. Both adults fell silent, ashamed.
Alessandro exhaled slowly.
You're right.
Both of us are right.
This life, my life, it's poison. It destroys everything it touches. But Marina, he met her eyes. Running didn't save you. It just meant you suffered alone. Without protection. Without resources. Without me. I had to try. I know, Alessandro's voice softened. And I understand why. If I'd known you were pregnant, if Rocco hadn't intercepted your letters. What letters?
Marina stiffened.
The ones you sent to me in prison. 23 of them. I found them in Rocco's safe tonight. Alessandro pulled out a bundle of envelopes, yellowed with age. He kept them as insurance. Every one of them begging me to understand why you left, telling me about the pregnancy, asking if there was any way we could make it work. Marina's hands shook as she took the letters, her handwriting, her desperate pleas sent into a void she thought had swallowed them. You never got them, she whispered. Never knew they existed until tonight. Rocco told me you'd cut all contact, that you wanted nothing to do with me. He said you'd filed for divorce, and specifically requested I not contest it. Alessandro's voice broke. He showed me papers, Marina. Legal documents with your signature. I thought you hated me. I thought I destroyed you so completely that you couldn't even stand to communicate. The signatures were forged. Marina understood it now, the full scope of Rocco's manipulation. He played us both. For 7 years. They sat in silence, processing the weight of it. 7 years of separation, of pain, of running. 7 years Leo had spent without a father. All because one man had decided their family was an obstacle to his ambition. Tell me the rest, Alessandro said quietly. Tell me everything that happened after you left. Every place you ran, every time they found you. I need to know what you survived. So Marina told him. She told him about the first year in Ohio, working double shifts at the diner while 6-month-old Leo slept in a drawer sheet padded with blankets. About the night Rocco's men came, how they trashed her apartment looking for money, how she'd escaped through a bathroom window with Leo strapped to her chest. She told him about Kentucky, about Michigan, about the dozen other states where they'd never stayed more than a few months. About the time Leo got pneumonia and she'd stolen medicine because she couldn't risk a hospital. About teaching Leo to read using library books because school would mean records, questions, exposure. She told him about the shelters where they'd slept in shifts so no one would steal their few possessions. About the men who'd offered help in exchange for things she wouldn't give. About the constant fear, the always looking over her shoulder, the teaching Leo to run before he could properly walk. And the bruises? Alessandro's voice was dangerous. The fresh ones. Who did that? Last week. Toledo. Rocco's men found us at the motel. They said Rocco wanted to see me suffer before he brought me home. They said, Marina's voice dropped to a whisper. They said they'd take Leo, raise him in the business. Make him everything you were, everything I'd run to prevent. Alessandro's hands clenched, so hard his knuckles cracked. Names. I want names. They're probably already dead. You've been killing Rocco's people all day. I want to make sure. Marina gave him the names she remembered. Alessandro pulled out his phone and sent a text to Johnny. Within seconds, a response came back. 2 confirmed dead from the monastery ambush, Alessandro said. 1 in custody. He's the one who shot you. What are you going to do to him? Alessandro looked at Leo, then back at Marina. What do you want me to do? The question surprised her. In all their years together, Alessandro had never asked her opinion on business matters. He'd made decisions, and she'd lived with the consequences. I want him to know he failed, Marina said finally. I want him to know that Leo is safe, that I'm safe, and that there's nothing he or anyone else can do about it. Then I want you to let him go. Let him go. Alessandro stared at her. Marina, he shot you. And if you kill him, another one takes his place. Then another. It never ends with you people, Marina's voice hardened. But if you let him go, if you show mercy, maybe, just maybe, some of them will think twice before coming after us again. That's not how this world works. Then change how it works. Marina met his eyes. You're the boss, aren't you? You make the rules. So make a new rule. My family is off limits. Anyone who touches us doesn't die. They just lose everything. Their money, their territory, their reputation. Make it worse than death. Alessandro stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him in 7 years. You know, he said, you would have made a hell of a crime boss. Despite everything, Marina laughed. It was a broken, exhausted sound, but it was real. And in that moment, in a basement lit by candles with their son between them, Alessandro, and Marina finally understood each other again. The dockyard at dawn was a cathedral of rust and rot, where shipping containers stacked like giant tombstones and the smell of brine mixed with diesel fuel. Rocco's loyalists had gathered here, 20 men who'd sworn allegiance to a dead man's vision and weren't ready to let it die. They didn't know Alessandro was listening. Rocco's gone. We all know it. The voice belonged to Danny Messina, a captain who ran protection rackets on the south side. Question is, what do we do now? Alessandro crouched on top of a container with Johnny beside him, both wearing dark clothes that blended with the pre-dawn shadows. Below them, Rocco's men stood in a loose circle, smoking cigarettes and arguing in the harsh whisper of conspirators.
We scatter, someone said.
Moretti's cleaning house. Anyone connected to Rocco is a dead man walking. Bullshit, Danny spat. Moretti's weak right now, distracted by that woman and the kid. Half the organization thinks he's lost his mind. We make our move now, we can take everything. With what army? Another voice challenged. Rocco had 20 soldiers. Moretti has 200-inch. Had 20, Danny corrected. Now I've got them. And I've got something Moretti wants more than his empire. He pulled out his phone and turned it so the others could see the screen. Smile for the camera, boys. Because we're about to become very rich men. On the phone screen was a photo, crystal clear despite the low light. Marina and Leo, sleeping in the church basement, taken through a window. Time-stamped from 2 hours ago. Alessandro's blood turned to ice. You got inside St. Augustine's? Someone asked, impressed. Sister Margaret isn't as loyal as Moretti thinks. For 50 grand, she told me which room they were in. Got me close enough to get this shot, Danny smiled. Moretti thinks he's got them safe. But he's got nothing. By tomorrow, that woman and kid will be mine, and Moretti will give me everything I ask for to get them back. And if he doesn't? Danny's smile turned cruel. Then I send him pieces until he does. Alessandro's hand moved toward his gun. Johnny grabbed his wrist, shaking his head. Not yet. Not until they had all the information. When do we move? Another man asked. Tonight. Moretti's meeting with the remaining captains at 7, trying to restore order. While he's busy playing boss, we hit the church. 4 men, in and out, no witnesses. The nuns keep their mouths shut or they go down too. And Sister Margaret. Already taken care of. I gave her another 20 grand to stay quiet and take a sudden vacation. Far as anyone knows, she left this morning to visit her sister in Boston. Danny crushed his cigarette under his heel. By the time Moretti realizes what's happened, we'll have his family and he'll have nothing. The men nodded, murmuring agreement. Plans were made, positions assigned. Alessandro memorized every face, every name, every detail. When the meeting finally broke up and the men dispersed, Alessandro and Johnny remained on the container, watching the sun bleed red over the harbor. Sister Margaret betrayed you, Johnny said quietly. I can't believe it. Neither can I. Alessandro's voice was hollow. He trusted the old nun, had believed that sacred ground meant something. Another miscalculation in a growing list. We need to move Marina and Leo.
Now. Where?
Everywhere we take them, someone finds out. You've got leaks in every operation. Then I stop operating. Alessandro stood, his decision made. Call Vincent and Marcus. Tell them I'm liquidating assets. Everything. The docks, the gambling halls, the construction fronts, all of it. I want cash, and I want it by tonight. Boss, you're talking about dismantling the entire empire. Your father built this, your grandfather before him. And it's got my family hunted, shot at, and traumatized. Alessandro jumped down from the container, landing hard on the concrete. What good is an empire if everyone I love is dead? So, what's the plan? You run? You walk away? No, Alessandro's eyes were cold, calculating. I burn it down. Make it so toxic, so dangerous, that no one wants what's left. Then I salt the earth, so nothing grows back. Johnny stared at him. You're going to destroy your own organization. I'm going to destroy Rocco's organization. The empire he infected, the soldiers he corrupted. I'm taking every piece he touched and grinding it to dust. Alessandro started walking toward their car. Marina was right. This world poisons everything. I won't let it poison my son. They drove in silence back to St. Augustine's. Alessandro's mind was already working through the logistics. He had 8 million in offshore accounts. Enough to disappear, to start over somewhere Rocco's ghost couldn't follow. But first, he had to survive the next 24 hours. When they arrived at the church, Alessandro went straight to the basement. Marina was awake, feeding Leo some breakfast Sister Margaret had brought. Sister Margaret. The old nun sat in the corner, serene as ever, her Bible open in her lap. Alessandro's hand moved to his gun.
Alessandro.
Marina noticed his expression. What's wrong? Sister Margaret, his voice was deadly calm. I need to speak with you. Alone. The nun looked up, her weathered face showing nothing. Of course, my son. She followed him into the hallway. The moment they were out of earshot, Alessandro grabbed her by the habit and slammed her against the wall. How much did Danny Messina pay you? Sister Margaret didn't flinch. Didn't deny it. Her old eyes met his steadily. 70,000. 20 to tell him where they were. 50 to disappear. The confirmation was somehow worse than the betrayal. Why? Because this church is falling apart, Alessandro. The roof leaks, the foundation is cracking, and the diocese won't give us money for repairs because we're in your neighborhood. Your poisonous neighborhood that drives good people away. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. 70,000 would fix everything. Would let us continue helping people for another 10 years. So you sold out a woman and child. I sold out the wife of a criminal and the son of a monster. Sister Margaret's eyes hardened. You come here asking for sanctuary, asking for God's protection, but you bring hell with you. Those men at the monastery? Dead because of you. The violence in our streets? Your fault. This church has been bleeding for years trying to clean up your messes. Alessandro wanted to put a bullet in her, wanted to make her hurt the way Marina had hurt, the way Leo had hurt. But she was an old woman, a nun, someone he trusted, someone who'd seen him as nothing but a monster. You have 1 hour, Alessandro said quietly, releasing her. Take your money and leave. If you're still in this city by noon, I'll forget you're a woman of God. And the woman and child, no longer your concern. Sister Margaret nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Alessandro, I prayed for you. Prayed you'd see the light and leave this life behind. But men like you never do. You just drag everyone else into the darkness with you. She walked away, her footsteps echoing on stone. Alessandro stood there, breathing hard, fighting the urge to scream. She was right. Everyone he touched turned to ash. Marina had known it. That's why she'd run. He returned to the basement room. Marina took one look at his face and knew. We have to leave, he said.
Now.
They're coming tonight. Who? Everyone. Marina didn't ask questions. She just grabbed Leo and their few belongings. As they headed for the exit, Leo tugged on Alessandro's jacket.
Papa.
The words still sounded strange in the boy's mouth. Are we ever going to stop running? Alessandro knelt down, looking his son in the eyes.
Yes. Soon.
I promise. How do you know? Because I'm going to end this.
Today.
All of it. Leo nodded, trusting in a way that made Alessandro's chest ache. As they left St. Augustine's for the last time, Alessandro pulled out his phone and sent a single text to every captain, every lieutenant, every soldier in his organization. Emergency meeting. Warehouse district.
Noon.
Everyone.
No exceptions. Come armed.
Johnny read the message over his shoulder. Boss, what are you doing? Calling them all in, Alessandro said. Every loyal soldier. Every traitor. Every man who's ever worked for me. I'm putting everyone in one room. That's suicide. If they turn on you, then I die protecting my family instead of running from them. Alessandro helped Marina and Leo into the SUV, then turned back to Johnny. If this goes wrong, Alessandro said quietly, get them out. Take them to the airport. Use the emergency funds. Make sure they disappear. And you?
Alessandro smiled grimly.
I'll be buying them time. As they drove through the city toward an uncertain future, Alessandro made a promise to himself. By sunset, either his empire would be secure enough to protect his family, or it would be destroyed so completely that no one would want what remained. There was no middle ground. Not anymore. The abandoned train yard was a graveyard of steel and broken dreams. Rusted locomotives sat on tracks that led nowhere, their windows shattered, their paint peeling like dead skin. Alessandro chose this place deliberately, neutral ground, away from his territory or anyone else's. A place where secrets could be buried. He'd sent the meeting location only to his inner circle: Vincent, Marcus, Johnny, Tony Barone, and 3 other captains he still believed were loyal. But he'd sent a different message to Danny Messina, a private one. I know what you're planning. Meet me first. Train yard. 10 a.m. Come alone, and we can make a deal. Now Alessandro stood between 2 rusted boxcars, waiting. Marina and Leo were hidden in a warehouse 3 miles away with Johnny's most trusted men. Safe.
For now.
A black Mercedes pulled into the yard right on time. Danny Messina stepped out, flanked by 2 bodyguards despite Alessandro's instructions. The man was 40, thick-necked and scarred, with eyes that had seen too much violence to fear more. Moretti. Danny walked forward, his guards trailing. Alone? That's either brave or stupid. I'm neither. Alessandro gestured to the shadows. Vincent and Marcus emerged from between the trains, weapons visible. But I am willing to talk. Danny's jaw tightened. Your message said a deal. It did. Alessandro pulled out a briefcase, the old-fashioned kind, metal and heavy. He set it on the hood of an abandoned truck. This contains $2 million.
Cash.
It's yours if you tell me everything Rocco told you, everything he planned, and the names of every man still loyal to his vision. Danny's eyes flicked to the briefcase, then back to Alessandro. $2 million to betray my crew? You think I'm cheap. I think you're smart. Rocco's dead. His dream of taking over is dead. You can either go down with that corpse, or you can take the money and walk away. Start fresh somewhere else. Or I could kill you right now and take everything you've got. You could try. Alessandro's voice was cold. But you came here with 2 men. I've got 20 surrounding this yard. You wouldn't make it to your car. It was a bluff. Alessandro only had Vincent, Marcus, and 2 others. But Danny didn't know that. Why not just kill me? Danny asked. You've been executing Rocco's people all week. Why am I special? Because you're predictable. You want money and power, and you'll do whatever it takes to get it. That makes you useful. Alessandro opened the briefcase, showing stacks of $100 bills. Rocco promised you power through chaos. I'm offering you wealth through cooperation.
Take the money.
Tell me what I need to know. Disappear. Danny stared at the cash, his jaw working. Alessandro could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, weighing risks, measuring odds. 3 million, Danny said finally. And I want it offshore, untraceable. Done. Danny blinked, surprised it was that easy. Just like that. Just like that. I don't care about the money, Danny. I care about my family. You tell me who's coming after them. I make you rich. Simple transaction. Danny studied Alessandro for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh sound. Rocco was right about you. You went soft. The old Moretti would have put a bullet in my head and burned down my house to get information. Now you're negotiating like a businessman. The old Moretti didn't have a son. Yeah, about that kid. Danny's smile turned cruel. Cute boy. Looks just like you. Be a shame if something happened to him. Alessandro's hand moved to his gun. Vincent and Marcus both raised their weapons. Danny held up his hands.
Easy.
Just making a point. You're vulnerable now, Moretti. Everyone can see it. That woman, that kid, they're not your strength. They're your weakness. And in this world, weakness gets exploited. Is that what you're doing? Exploiting my weakness? I'm considering my options. Danny pulled out his own phone, showing the same photo he displayed at the dockyard. Marina and Leo sleeping. Sister Margaret was very helpful. Got me good shots, exact room location, guard patterns. Everything I need. Alessandro's blood ran cold. Sister Margaret is gone. Paid off and out of the city. Oh, I know. I paid her half before she left. Promised the other half after the job was done. Danny's smile widened. But here's the thing, Moretti. I don't need her anymore. I've got 5 men watching that warehouse where you think your family is safe. The warehouse on 5th Street with Johnny's crew. Did you really think I wouldn't follow you? The world tilted. Alessandro's mind raced. 5th Street was a decoy warehouse. He'd deliberately gone there first before moving Marina and Leo to the actual safe house. But if Danny had followed him there, if he'd seen the decoy and thought it was real. You're bluffing, Alessandro said carefully. Am I? Danny pulled up another photo, this one showing the outside of the 5th Street warehouse. 6 men on guard. 2 at the front, 2 at the back, 2 mobile. Changed shifts at 8 a.m. Real thorough security, Moretti. Almost like you're protecting something precious. Alessandro's mind worked frantically. Danny had fallen for the decoy. But if Alessandro showed any relief, any sign that he wasn't worried, Danny would know something was wrong. What do you want? Alessandro asked, letting anger show in his voice. Everything. Danny pocketed his phone. Your territory, your connections, your offshore accounts. You sign it all over to me, and I let your family live. You refuse, and my men move in. 1 phone call, Moretti. That's all it takes. I'd rather die. Oh, you won't die. Not at first, Danny's voice dropped, venomous. First, we'll take the kid. Raise him like Rocco wanted in the business learning the trade. Your woman gets to watch her son become everything she ran from. Then, maybe 10 years from now when the boy is just like you, we'll let you both die knowing you failed him. The threat was specific, detailed, designed to cause maximum pain. Alessandro felt rage building in his chest like a nuclear reaction. You have until tonight, Danny continued. 7 p.m. The big meeting you called, at the warehouse district. Everyone will be there watching you. You'll stand up in front of your entire organization and announce you're stepping down. Naming me as your successor. Signing over everything. And you'll do it with a smile, or I make that call, and your son disappears. And if I agree, you'll leave them alone? Scout's honor, Danny's smile was poison. They'll live out their lives in peace, while you rot knowing you gave up everything for nothing. Because that's what love costs in our world, Moretti. Everything. Alessandro stood there, letting Danny think he was broken, defeated. Letting him see a father's desperation instead of a predator's calculation. I need proof they're alive, Alessandro said quietly. Before I agree to anything, I need proof you haven't already moved on them. Fair enough, Danny made a show of texting someone. 30 seconds later, his phone buzzed. He showed Alessandro a new photo, the 5th Street warehouse, timestamp from 2 minutes ago. Fresh enough for you. I need until tonight. To set things up properly, make it look legitimate. You've got until 7 p.m. Not a second longer. Danny backed toward his car, his guards covering his retreat. Oh, and Moretti? Don't try anything heroic. I've got men watching you, watching the warehouse, watching everyone you care about. You're in a cage now. Only question is whether you're smart enough to see it. The Mercedes pulled away, leaving dust and exhaust fumes. Vincent appeared at Alessandro's side. Boss, we could have taken him. No, Alessandro's voice was steady now, cold and calculating. He had to believe he won. Had to think I'm broken and desperate. Aren't you? I'm whatever I need to be to keep my family safe. Alessandro pulled out his phone and called Johnny. Danny took the bait. He thinks Marina and Leo are at the 5th Street location. What about the meeting tonight?
Johnny asked.
Happens exactly as planned. Every captain, every soldier, everyone in one place. Danny's going to show up thinking he's taking over. Alessandro smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. He's going to get a different kind of coronation. Boss, if this goes wrong. It won't. Because Danny made one critical mistake. What's that? He thought I was negotiating. Alessandro watched the dust from Danny's car settle. I wasn't negotiating. I was recording. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a digital recorder, running throughout the entire conversation. Danny's threats, his plans, his admission about Sister Margaret, all of it captured in crystal clarity. "Send this to every captain," Alessandro ordered. "Make sure they all hear it before the meeting. Let them know what Danny really thinks about loyalty, about the organization, about all of them. Let them hear him threaten to kidnap a child. And then we let them decide who they want to follow. A man who makes deals or a man who targets children." As Alessandro walked back to his car, he felt something shift inside him. The old Alessandro would have killed Danny in that train yard, consequences be damned. But the new Alessandro, the father, the husband, had learned patience. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't quick. Sometimes it was public. The Golden Casino sat on neutral territory, a gaudy palace of vice owned collectively by all the major families as a meeting place where blood couldn't be spilled without consequences. Its conference room had witnessed 50 years of deals, betrayals, and uneasy truces. Tonight, it would witness a reckoning. Alessandro arrived at 6:30, early enough to control the space. The room was vast, with a long mahogany table that could seat 30. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across oil paintings of old mob bosses, men who'd built empires and died violent deaths. Vincent and Marcus had arrived first, securing the exits. Johnny stood by Alessandro's side, his hand never far from his weapon. One by one, the captains filtered in, men who controlled different pieces of the organization, each one watching the others with suspicious eyes. Tony Barone entered with his usual gravity, taking his seat without a word. The old consigliera's face was unreadable, but Alessandro had sent him the recording hours ago. If Tony was here, it meant something. By 7 p.m., 23 men sat around the table. Leaders. Soldiers. The backbone of the Moretti Empire. Danny Messina arrived last, flanked by his 2 bodyguards, wearing a suit that cost more than most men earned in a year. He smiled at Alessandro like they were old friends. "Moretti, glad you came to your senses." Alessandro didn't respond. He stood at the head of the table, hands flat on the mahogany, and waited until every eye was on him. "Gentlemen," Alessandro began, his voice carrying through the room. 2 weeks ago, we lost $4 million in a failed arms deal. Since then, we've lost territory, soldiers, and trust. This organization has been bleeding from a wound we couldn't see. Murmurs around the table. Danny leaned back in his chair, confident. "Tonight, I'm going to show you that wound. Johnny, if you please." Johnny pressed a button on a remote. Hidden speakers throughout the room crackled to life, and Danny's voice filled the space. "I've got 5 men watching that warehouse where you think your family is safe. 1 phone call, Moretti. That's all it takes." Danny's smile vanished. He sat up straight, his eyes darting to the speakers. "First, we'll take the kid. Raise him like Rocco wanted in the business, learning the trade. Your woman gets to watch her son become everything she ran from." The room had gone dead silent. Every captain was listening now, faces hardening with each word. "You'll stand up in front of your entire organization and announce you're stepping down, naming me as your successor." Alessandro let the recording play to its end. When Danny's final threat about the cage finished echoing through the room, Alessandro spoke. "This conversation happened this morning. Danny Messina threatened to kidnap my 6-year-old son, to raise him as a weapon against me, to extort control of this organization through terror and violence against a child." That's taken out of context. Danny shot to his feet. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Tony Barone's voice cut through Danny's protests like a blade. The old consigliere stood, his weathered face twisted with disgust. "You broke the oldest rule. Children are off limits. Always. No exceptions." "Rocco's plan." "Rocco was a traitor and a thief," Vincent snarled.
We proved that.
"And you were his lapdog." "I was trying to save this organization from a boss who'd gone soft." Danny's composure cracked. "Look at him. Moretti's been compromised by a woman and a bastard kid.
He's weak. Distracted.
While he's playing father, our enemies are circling. So, your solution was to threaten a child? Marcus stood now, his massive frame towering. To extort your own boss. It was the only way. There is no way that justifies this. Tony's voice was final, absolute. In 50 years, I've seen bosses rise and fall. I've seen wars, betrayals, coups. But never, never have I seen someone threaten a child and survive it. Danny looked around the table, seeing his support evaporate in real time. Men who'd been neutral were now hostile. His own allies were backing away. You all heard the recording, Danny said desperately. Moretti admitted he's vulnerable. He said he'd give up everything for his family. That's weakness. That's humanity, Alessandro said quietly. Something you've apparently forgotten. Danny's hand moved toward his jacket. Fast. Practiced. But Alessandro was faster. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Danny jerked backward, a red bloom spreading across his chest. His eyes went wide with shock as he collapsed into his chair, then slid to the floor. His bodyguards drew their weapons. 10 guns answered, all pointed at them. They froze, then slowly lowered their weapons and stepped back. Alessandro stood over Danny's body, smoke still rising from his pistol. Anyone else want to threaten my family? Silence. Anyone else think I'm too weak to lead? More silence. Tony walked to Alessandro's side and placed a hand on his shoulder. You've proven your point. But Alessandro, this can't happen again. The casino is neutral ground. You've broken sacred rules. Then charge me, Alessandro said, not looking away from the captains. Fine me, sanction me, whatever the council demands. I'll pay it. But everyone in this room needs to understand, my family is untouchable. Anyone who forgets that ends up like Danny. Vincent spoke up. What about Danny's crew? The men at the docks this morning? I have their names. Alessandro pulled out a list. 23 men total. They're being rounded up as we speak. They'll be given one chance. Swear loyalty to this organization and live, or take severance pay and leave the city forever. Anyone who refuses both options gets buried with Danny. And the woman? Marcus asked carefully. Your ex-wife. What happens to her? Alessandro finally turned from the body. She's not my ex-wife. The divorce was coerced, obtained through fraud and threats. As far as I'm concerned, Marina Moretti is still my wife, and Leo Moretti is my legitimate heir. They're under the protection of this family. Full stop. Tony nodded slowly. The council will want to meet them. Verify the boy's bloodline. It's tradition. They can meet Marina. In a safe, public place, with no weapons and no threats. The boy stays out of this world until he's old enough to choose for himself. That's not how succession works. That's how it works now. Alessandro's voice carried steel. I'm changing the rules, Tony. Children get to be children. They don't get inducted, don't get trained, don't get exposed to this life until they're adults who can consent to it. If that costs me the empire, so be it. The captains exchanged glances. This was unprecedented, revolutionary. But Alessandro was offering something none of them had ever had, a chance to protect their own children from the cycle of violence. I'll support it, Vincent said finally. My daughter is 14. I'd like her to reach 20-inch. Seconded, Marcus added. My son keeps asking about the business. I keep telling him no. Would be nice if that no actually meant something. One by one, the captains nodded agreement. Even Tony, traditional to his bones, saw the wisdom in it. Then it's settled, Alessandro said. New rule, effective immediately. The council will draft the formal language, but the principle stands. Children are completely off limits until age 18. Any violation results in immediate death. No trial, no appeal. And what about Danny's threat about the warehouse? Someone asked. His men watching her family?
Alessandro smiled coldly.
Already handled. Johnny. The 5th Street warehouse was empty, Johnny reported. Just decoys moving around. When Danny's men moved in 30 minutes ago, they walked into an ambush. All 5 arrested by federal agents we've had on payroll. They're facing 20 years minimum for attempting to kidnap a federal witness. A federal witness? Tony's eyebrows rose. I made a deal, Alessandro admitted. Marina testifies about Rocco's threats and actions over the past 7 years. In exchange, she gets full immunity and protection. The feds get to dismantle Rocco's entire network, all the corrupt businesses he built, all the officials he bought. It was dead weight anyway, poisoned by his betrayal. You're giving the feds access to our operations? Vincent looked alarmed. To Rocco's operations. The parts he controlled, the pieces he corrupted. I'm cutting out the cancer before it spreads. Alessandro met each captain's eyes. We're going legitimate. Slowly, carefully, but starting now. The drugs, the guns, the really dirty business. We're out. We keep the gambling, the construction, the unions. Things that exist in gray areas but won't get our children killed. The room erupted in arguments. Some captains supported the move, seeing profit in legitimacy. Others protested, claiming Alessandro was destroying everything their fathers built. Alessandro let them argue for 5 minutes, then fired his gun into the ceiling. I'm not asking permission, he said into the shocked silence. I'm telling you how it's going to be. You can adapt, or you can leave with severance. But the Moretti family is changing, starting tonight. Tony studied Alessandro for a long moment, then slowly began to clap. Your grandfather would be proud. He always said this life was temporary, that real power came from building something that lasted. Will the other families accept this? Marcus asked. We'll look weak. We'll look smart, Alessandro countered. The feds are tightening their grip every year. The old ways are dying. We adapt now, or we go extinct. As the meeting continued into the night, Alessandro felt his phone buzz. A text from the secure line he'd given Marina. We're safe. Leo is asking about you. Come home soon. Home. The word felt foreign and perfect at the same time. Alessandro looked at the body on the floor, at the blood pooling on expensive carpet, at the men who'd followed him into hell and back. One last thing, he said. Danny's body gets a proper burial. His family gets his legitimate assets. We're not monsters. We're just done pretending this life doesn't have consequences. As the captains filed out, Tony approached Alessandro privately. You're gambling everything on this, the old consigliere said. Family, empire, your own life. I know. And you think it'll work? Alessandro thought of Leo's small hand in his, of Marina's tired smile, of the possibility of a life that wasn't soaked in blood. It has to, he said simply. Because for the first time in his violent life, Alessandro Moretti had something worth living for. And that changed everything. The docks at sunrise looked almost peaceful. Golden light painted the water, making the harbor shimmer like something from a postcard. Alessandro stood at the edge of Pier 27, watching the cargo ships drift past, their horns echoing across the empty sky. He'd been here since 4 a.m., unable to sleep. Behind him, a car door closed softly. He didn't turn around. You're early, Marina said. Couldn't wait any longer. She walked to his side, keeping a careful distance between them. In the 5 days since the casino meeting, they'd barely spoken beyond logistics. Where to hide, what to tell the feds, how to keep Leo safe. But nothing personal. Nothing real. Where is he? Alessandro asked. In the car with Johnny. Sleeping, Marina pulled her jacket tighter against the morning chill. He's exhausted. The nightmares have been bad. Alessandro's jaw tightened. Is he talking about it? Some. He drew a picture yesterday. Of the shooting. Of you carrying him away from the bullets, she paused. He said you looked like a superhero. I'm not a hero, Marina. I know what you are, her voice was soft, not accusatory. But to him, you're his father. The man who saved him. That's all he sees. Alessandro finally turned to look at her. In the dawn light, Marina looked different than the broken woman he'd found on the street corner. The bruises had faded. She'd gained a little weight. But her eyes still carried the haunted look of someone who'd spent 7 years running. The feds finished the paperwork yesterday, Alessandro said. New identities for both of you. Social security numbers, birth certificates, complete backstories. Marina Foster and Leo Foster. Mother and son from Oregon, relocating for work.
Foster, Marina repeated.
That's generic. That's the point. You'll blend in. Disappear. Alessandro pulled an envelope from his jacket. 2 tickets to Seattle. Flight leaves in 4 hours. There's an apartment already rented, 6 months prepaid. Bank account with $500,000. Everything you need to start over. Marina took the envelope with shaking hands. $500,000? It's not enough. I wanted to give you more, but too much money raises flags. The feds are watching my accounts. Alessandro stared out at the water. There's a trust fund for Leo. $5 million. He gets access when he turns 18. If he wants college, a business, whatever, it'll be there.
Alessandro.
And there's a name in there. A lawyer in Seattle. If anything happens to me, if you ever need anything, you call him. He'll handle everything, no questions asked. You make it sound like I'm never going to see you again. Alessandro didn't answer. Couldn't answer.
Marina stepped closer.
Tell me what you're planning. I'm planning to keep you safe. Both of you. By sending us away? By cutting us out of your life. By giving you the chance I never had, Alessandro's voice cracked. The chance to be normal. To live without looking over your shoulder. To let Leo grow up without knowing what his father really is. Leo already knows who his father is. He knows you saved us. This time. What about next time? Or the time after that? Alessandro turned to face her fully. Danny was right about one thing, Marina. You and Leo are my weakness. As long as you're in my life, you're targets. Every enemy I make, every deal that goes wrong, every grudge someone holds, it all comes back to you. So, you're just going to abandon us. I'm going to protect you the only way I know how. By staying away. Marina's eyes filled with tears. That's not protection. That's cowardice. The word hit like a slap. Alessandro flinched, but didn't argue. 7 years ago, Rocco convinced me that leaving you was the only way to save our son. Marina continued, her voice rising. That distance equaled safety. I believed him, and it was the worst mistake of my life. We didn't stay safe, we just stayed alone. Scared and running, and barely surviving. That's because Rocco was hunting you. This is different.
How?
How is this different? Marina grabbed his jacket. You're still choosing fear over family. You're still convinced that love is weakness instead of strength. Love is weakness in my world. Then change your world. Marina shook him, tears streaming down her face. You've already started. The new rules, going legitimate, cutting out the violence. You're building something better. But you're doing it alone when you could. When I could what? Bring you back into my life? Watch Leo grow up surrounded by criminals? Wait for the day someone gets through my defenses and kills you both to hurt me. Alessandro pulled away from her. I've seen what happens to mob families, Marina. I've seen the wives who can't leave their houses without bodyguards. The children who get kidnapped, ransomed, murdered. I won't do that to you. I won't do that to him. So, instead you'll do nothing? Be nothing to your son except a ghost who sends money. If that keeps him alive, yes. Marina stared at him, and Alessandro saw the exact moment her heart broke. Not from fear or pain, but from disappointment. You know what the saddest part is? She whispered. Leo asked me this morning if you were coming with us. He wanted to know if we'd be a family. And I lied to him. I said I didn't know, because I couldn't bear to tell him the truth. What truth? That his father is so consumed by his own demons that he can't see the miracle right in front of him. A second chance. A family that loves him. A life that could mean something more than blood and money. Behind them, a car door opened. Small footsteps on concrete. Alessandro turned to see Leo walking toward them, still groggy from sleep, Johnny trailing behind, looking apologetic. He woke up, Johnny explained. Insisted on seeing you. Leo stopped a few feet away, his dark eyes, Alessandro's eyes, studying his father with that unsettling wisdom children sometimes possess. Are you coming with us, Papa? The question hung in the morning air like smoke. Alessandro knelt down, bringing himself to Leo's level. He wanted to say yes. Wanted to grab them both and run, leave everything behind, become someone new. Someone clean. Someone worthy of the word father. But he'd built an empire on violence. He'd made enemies who would never stop hunting him. And as long as he lived, as long as his name meant something in the criminal underworld, Marina and Leo would never truly be safe.
No, Budi.
I'm not. Leo's face crumpled. Why not? Because there are bad men who want to hurt Papa. And if Papa stays with you, those bad men might hurt you too. Alessandro reached out, cupping Leo's small face. But I'm going to keep fighting those bad men. Keep making them go away. So that one day, when you're all grown up, there won't be any bad men left. That's going to take a long time, Leo said, his voice thick with tears. Yeah, it might. Will you forget about us? Never. Alessandro pulled Leo into a hug, holding his son like he could absorb the boy into his bones, keep him safe through sheer force of will. Not for a single second of a single day.
You're my son.
That means forever. Leo buried his face in Alessandro's shoulder. I don't want to go without you. I know, but you have to be brave for Mama.
Can you do that? A small nod against his chest.
Alessandro stood, lifting Leo in his arms one last time. He walked to Marina, placing their son in her arms where he belonged, where he'd be safe. There's one more thing in the envelope, Alessandro said quietly. A phone number. Completely secure, untraceable. If Leo ever wants to talk to me, if he ever has questions or just needs to hear my voice, that number will always work. Always.
Marina clutched Leo tighter. Alessandro.
And when he turns 18, if he wants to know who his father really was, if he wants to meet me, Alessandro's voice broke. If I'm still alive, I'll be here. But it has to be his choice. Not mine, not yours. His. What if he chooses to never see you again? Then I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I did the right thing, even if it destroyed me. Alessandro stepped back before he could change his mind, before the need to hold them both became too strong to resist. Johnny appeared at his side, solid and dependable. Johnny will drive you to the airport, Alessandro said. Private terminal, no security lines. The plane is chartered under a corporate account that can't be traced back to me. When you land in Seattle, there'll be someone waiting. A woman named Sarah. She's a social worker, completely clean, doesn't know anything about my business. She'll help you get settled. You've thought of everything, Marina said bitterly. I've tried. Marina shifted Leo in her arms and walked to the car. But at the door, she stopped and turned back. You could have had a family, Alessandro. A real one.
Love.
Normalcy. Everything you never got as a child. It was right here, right in front of you. I know, Alessandro said softly. And instead, now you do. The car door closed. The engine started. Alessandro watched the vehicle pull away, carrying his entire world with it. Leo's small face appeared in the back window, palm pressed against the glass. Alessandro raised his hand in farewell, kept it raised until the car disappeared around a corner. Then he stood alone on the pier as the sun climbed higher, painting everything in shades of gold that felt like mockery. The city was waking up around him, his city, his empire, his curse. Johnny reappeared, having circled back after seeing Marina and Leo off. Boss, what now? Alessandro pulled out his phone and looked at the messages waiting. 3 captains needed decisions. The feds wanted another meeting. The construction union was threatening a strike. 100 small crises that made up the daily operation of a criminal empire trying to go legitimate.
Now.
Alessandro pocketed the phone. Now we build something better. Something clean enough that when Leo turns 18, if he chooses to know me, I won't be ashamed of what I've become. That's a tall order, boss. I've got time. Alessandro started walking toward his own car. And I've got motivation. That's more than I had yesterday. As they drove back into the city, Alessandro caught his reflection in the window. He looked older, harder, like he'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. But his eyes held something they hadn't before. Purpose. For 35 years, Alessandro Moretti had been a criminal, a killer, a king of a dark empire. He'd built his throne on bones and ruled through fear. Now he would be something else. Something harder. He would be the ghost father who loved his son enough to let him go. Who stayed in hell so his family could live in heaven. Who became the monster so they could be human. It wasn't the ending he'd wanted. It wasn't the family reunion movies promised. But it was real. It was sacrifice. It was love measured in absence, in security, in the quiet knowledge that somewhere in Seattle, a boy named Leo Foster would grow up safe, happy, and free. And Alessandro Moretti would spend every day for the rest of his life making sure no shadow from his past ever darkened that future. The car merged into traffic. The city swallowed them whole. And somewhere in the distance, a plane took off, carrying 2 passengers toward a new life they'd never dreamed possible. The ghost father watched from the ground, invisible and vigilant. Forever. The end.